here, what do we have? One single pull request merged, made shape placement, parsing strategy extendable. So the idea is that before we had a switch case with all the tags that were supported, the attributes that were supported. Let me show you. And this one probably, nope. Here, you remember case, so in the placement files, content part, content types, display type, path, and so on. And what Carl made is just externalize it into a services, different interface to provide that. So now you have that available as different implementation of iPlacementParts match provider. Okay, but it's just copy pasting the code and putting them into different providers. And this way he could implement his own properties to match based on custom logic for their website. So it's not breaking, it's making it extensible. So it's in 110x. That's it for the PRs. Orchard 2. Orchard 2, what do we have here? Nick rebasing. We have OrchardCore renaming, and I will show you the results. So we renamed all the orchard.something to OrchardCore.Something. This must be a PR which has been merged. So Razorpages improvements or bug fixes. This is fixing OpenIddict version, which was breaking the build because it released new breaking changes and we were picking them automatically, so it broke things. So now we are taking a specific version for it. This is the Docker images. I will show you what we do. ModularPages, this is just Razorpage improvements. Fixing things, removing OpenId from the sass.recipe because it doesn't make sense, it's optional now. This is nothing, just test. This is small fixes for the default recipe to have the title on top of the body part. More documentation, Antoine fixing documentation, I will talk about it. Improving documentation. Updating the README with documentation links, refactoring liquid, how the objects are provided to liquid, so just extensibility, minor things. Antoine rebasing the bootstrap 4 branch over the new naming of OrchardCore. We don't care. Documentation. Nick working on APIs, and he will show us the result. And documentation. And more credits, more documentation. And Jean-Thierry, well, fixing the application part for MVC, and it improves the performance on startup and in memory. But it's yeah, details. So that's it for status. I will come back on that after. So we also have so documentation updates. So Antoine updated the documentation pipeline so that it's automatic now whenever we push some changes, and he also made available the 2 branches. So the documentation is OrchardCore.readthedocs.io. Okay, and it will redirect to the latest. And there are 2 branches which you can switch from here. The latest, which is a master branch, and a dev branch, which is like a buffer branch waiting for validation and lots of changes before going to master. And every time it's pushed to master, we push Myget packages and Docker images, which I will show you. And this one doesn't have to wait then. So the dev branch, for instance, you can check and you will go to dev. Right now, they're almost the same. New things also is that now the Travis CI is fixed. It was broken for weeks, and it's fixed by just ignoring the unit test on the OSX image, because the unit test did just fail on Travis. Like, not failing as in they don't pass, as in they don't run. There is an issue with memory or file system on the Travis OSX images, so that they are just run on the Linux images, and that's fine. So we run the unit test on the Windows image from Apveyor and on the Linux image from Travis, and we build everything on the OSX image, at least to check that it builds. But the Linux unit test should be sufficient. And now it's green. And otherwise, more documentation, again, from all the readmes from every project that have some readmes on the master or on the repository. For instance, yesterday I updated more liquid tags for shapes based on what Jean-Thierry made on the themes. Queries was fixed also, based also from some comments on GitHub. People try OrchardCore and find some issues or have questions, like they don't know how to do things. And every time they have a question and we answer, then we put it in the documentation. This way we can just point them next time, or they don't have to ask a question.
What was up with the samples project?
Samples project. Samples project. What's the question?
I saw someone tried the samples project and it didn't work or something.
Yes. So So just as a reminder, we have an OrchardCore.Samples, which is not the Orchard CMS. Oh, GitHub. So OrchardCore.Samples, it's a repository on our GitHub organization, which contains samples for the modular and multi-tenancy part of OrchardCore, not the CMS or the modules that we made. Just it's a nice example, simple example to build new modular and or multi-tenant applications on ASP.NET Core, okay, which is the base framework we are using to build Orchard CMS and other modules. So this is two applications, so modular application, and is just one simple web app project, which will point to OrchardCore.modules, and also reference two module project. And I explain how to build a module project. And the discussion that was on GitHub was about that it didn't work anymore, because last week when we changed all the packages from Orchard to OrchardCore, it broke the samples. And also it broke this thing with the tenant JSON that the names have changed also for OrchardCore MVC. So that was the discussion. It didn't work anymore. Now it works again. I just upgraded the...
Did you fix it? Was there anything in the README that you needed to change?
I don't think so. I checked and everything was good.
Okay.
So this morning I changed the repository name to OrchardCore, but GitHub makes a redirect automatically when you change name. So by going to Orchard 2, you'll be redirected to OrchardCore. So all the links will still work, like this one. Okay, but we will go over all the links and change them accordingly with the new correct URL, which is better. Okay, so I will fix this one. There is one in our README or in our documentation, so we'll go over them. I checked everything was still working. Travis is still working also, because even the Git still works with Orchard 2. But we'll have to change them one by one once we find URLs. That's it.
Did Kevin Chalet fix the OpenId stuff?
He didn't have to fix anything because we pinned the version to the previous one. So
yes, of course.
So we fixed it like 2 hours after we found the issue. Then he created a pull request to use his latest version, still pinned, and also fix the breaking change. And it has been merged master, so there is no more issue.
Good lad.
Yep. So documentation, this site, that's it. We have a new website.
Oh, yes. Do you think it's best that we do the try Orchard against .nest?
Sorry?
The try Orchard button goes to .nest.
Yes.
Is that a good idea?
Yes, that was what was decided. So we had like 2-3 meetings about the website last year.
Okay.
With Web Advance, with Steve Taylor, and the last meetings we had with Steve Taylor, and he showed like 3 different what kind of websites. It was like a form where you could put an email and a name, and when you submit, it will create an account on .nest automatically and create you a website. So what I just did right now is just a button to try .nest to try Orchard. Maybe we can do better, but right now it's already sufficient. We can also have try Orchard on .nest, try Orchard on Azure, or whatever we can do to automate that.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking about that whole, like, similar to Umbraco Cloud.
But I didn't have anything for Azure. I have something for Azure, but it makes you create
an account, right?
Yeah, a ball on .nest also, I assume. But it was easier to just point to .nest. I will do that, don't worry. I will do also the Azure one. We have already something on our repository. Here, I always go to GitHub. We have that deployed to Azure. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So I could add this button or have an Azure icon and a .nest icon so people can choose.
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds good.
So if I click on that, it will open my portal and the sites. And go to so it's opening a custom marketplace item, and you see I can configure SQL database, app service, and
is that through the web application platform thing?
I'm not. No, that's nothing to do with the web application platform.
Will we be deploying Orchard to OrchardCore to web application platform?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think it's not updating.
I don't think people use it to build websites.
I think the only way to do that from IS console and also from WebMatrix, which is discontinued.
So, WebMatrix, yeah, that's not a thing anymore, right?
Nope. Oh, it still works. You can still download it, but I'm not sure what you can do with it. Okay. You can't do .NET Core, for instance. Well, this thing is nice already. You see, you can just then subscribe. Well, use your existing plan.
Yeah, that seems to be
try
cool.
it. That's good. .NET too. So we can have things like this. But
is there a similar thing on AWS?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay.
Personally, I don't care. Right?
Well, yeah, working on the Azure team, but
I'm paid, so you buy Azure stuff.
I know.
Please buy Azure stuff.
Maybe one day.
.nest is running on Azure, so I'm fine with that. Okay, so new website. Why new website? For 2 reasons. Remember last year we shipped a new gallery website. The reason was technical because we could not have HTTPS on the old website because it was so old, like 7 years old, that we could not update the SSL certificates on this old hosting, which was the first version of the Azure Cloud Service SDK, which is not supported anymore by the portal, so there was no way to update it. So we made a new gallery website. On the main website, it was not as important to have HTTPS because there was no authentication, it's just static content. Or at least for the editors, yes, but for the common users, there was no requirement for authentication, so we didn't care about HTTPS. But a new requirement appeared a few months ago, which is for security reason because it was tagged as a Microsoft asset because there were links to Microsoft email inside the whole website. I had lots of security requirements in terms of where it's hosted and how to update it. So for the same reason, I could not update the template for the site. So the solution was to create a new website that could be completely updated and removing all the things that will mark it as a Microsoft asset. So now it's just marked as a .NET Foundation asset, as it should be. Okay. On the previous one, there was a mix of Outer Curve Foundation and Microsoft, because I could not update that. It was in the layout, not in the content. That's bad. So I made a website. It took a day, and then a few hours based on the feedback when it was online. And it will also take me some more time now to do more things, I will explain, but it was quick to do. And you can recognize very lots of similarities with the agency theme from OrchardCore agency recipe.
This is an OrchardCore website.
This is not an OrchardCore website. This right now, because for no time to market, is a static website. But this is exactly how I did it. How I did the agency recipe on OrchardCore, which is I first took the static files and then orchardized it. And this is what I will do in the next days. Okay, so it's up right now. I had it working because I wanted to make it static first to just design the site and to make it work, to know what I wanted to create. And now that it's done static and I have my design and everything, I will make it an OrchardCore site where I will be able to add new pages for the external posts, for custom content, things like the theme and history, things like this. But right now it's just like this. It will be super easy to make it an OrchardCore site, the same way I made the recipe for the agency. I'm not worried at all. Even more that I did it once with the agency, so now it will be much easier. Yep. So I also had to remove the Show Orchard logo because the Show Orchard site doesn't work anymore. I scraped the images from webarchive.org, where I can still browse the Show Orchard in its latest version and pick the data I want from that.
Show Orchard's gone, is it?
We'll see with Ryan Drubernet and Zoltan. I think Zoltan was in discussion with him to host Show Orchard on .nest. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm sure we still have the data somewhere. Worst case, we can scrape the data. It's not that hard, like I did for that. Okay, I just re-downloaded all the images he took and reused it there. But yeah, that we have a working site from the theme that we use in OrchardCore. So it will be OrchardCore later. I'm not worried about it. So that's it. And at some point we'll also make a site for OrchardCore. Last time we had a meeting about it. The conclusion of the meeting was that when we would have OrchardCore, we would just switch the content to just talk about OrchardCore, or we can also have two sites, like or another page for the another site for the Orchard CMS one and OrchardCore. So everything is still open, nothing is released, so that's fine. We have time to talk about it. That's the website. Feel free to send comments on GitHub about things to do. I've already had lots of discussions by mail with all the other committee members and feedback, what we need to add, and we all agree. So that should be good. Fixed all the typos, hopefully. Yep. So that's it about the site. I don't see the chat. Maybe there are things on the chat and there are people chatting. Just Nick by himself.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my solution to build, so I can demo.
Oh, well, that's very professional. So what else? Oh, so updates. So now, whenever we push to master, we'll have appveyor and Travis to build Docker images. Okay, if you want to see how it's done. These Docker images are named Orchard Project / OrchardCore.CMS - Windows and -Linux. And they have two tags, so it might not talk to everyone, but those who use Docker will understand. So image name is like a NuGet package. Okay, it's a different package file image. So there is a dash Windows and a dash Linux because they will be based on a Windows OS or a Linux OS. The image contains everything to run. The Windows image is based on Nano Server, and the Linux image is based on Debian 16.04. They have two tags, so like version numbers. Latest meaning, okay, give me the latest, always the latest. And this one is based on the version number, like 100 beta 1. This way you can not be upgraded automatically to a new breaking change version. You can just point to a specific beta version. And for instance, .NET has many more tags like 100 beta, 101. So you can even be pinned on a specific subversion if you don't want to change, to bump from two big subversions. So that's interesting. And they are available on Docker Hub. So if you go on this URL, not this one, this is the old one where I was testing. So hub.docker.com, and you go Orchard project. There are two images. You can see them and statistics, how many pulls, like how many times they were downloaded. The Linux one and the Windows. I still need to update the description and full description, but that will be done and that will be kept automatically. It's like the NuGet guide.
All right, cool. So I've been working a little bit on some REST APIs. Just a way to get data out through the CMS without going through the UI. So I've created a module called REST APIs. And inside that, there are two types of APIs. One's a JSON API, which uses attempts to follow this specification. In fact, which does follow this specification. And the second one is a GraphQL one, which is GraphQL, which is this specification. So the GraphQL is the one from Facebook. So the GraphQL one's quite interesting. You can do some nice things with it. So GraphQL is kind of like, I've got a shopping basket and I'm telling the system I've got a shopping basket and this is what I want returned, and GraphQL will return it, and we can see that. So I've got a few queries here. So the first one I'm going to say, I want a content item. I want all my content items where the content type is of type blog. So in my endpoint, I've got an endpoint called /GraphQL. In GraphQL land, you have only one endpoint that you can do a post or a get to. I don't really like the idea of doing a post to a GraphQL endpoint to do a query, though the spec does say that we probably should support it. So I will add that in later. And query is also a reserved word. So if I pop my query into my URL, I can see that I've got a content item with an ID of 45 and a content type of blog. So ignore the fact that the ID 45 is the ID that's actually returned from the database. We don't care about that right now. We just care about the fact that I've asked for ID and I've asked for content type. Now, I could go a step further. And if we look at what's on a content item, I could say, well, okay, I actually want my content ID back. So if we pop that into my list, in fact, if we do uppercase C and see what comes out, pop that into my, I can see that it doesn't know what that is. So GraphQL by default prefixes it, makes everything, the initial character, lowercase. So we can change the uppercase content item ID to lowercase. And now I've got my content item ID back, and that's really groovy. So I know that I've got a content item of content type blog with etc. in here, and that kind of works. So that's quite neat. But next I want to say, well, you know what, like I've got a title part, so let's get that data out too. Of course, I haven't extended this to deal with schemas yet, so we can't, there's no way for us to say, well, I've got a content type of blog, what's on my blog? But that will come in time. So if I do, if I pop this in, so this is basically saying, on my list of parts, inside my list of parts, on my title part, return my title. Straightforward. So, okay, this is where there's a bit of a bug at the moment. So, the idea is that it should just return you this. This isn't finished, but we can see that it's returned me a title part and the title of blog. It's also returned me the type of AutoroutePart and a few nulls, and that's because I've kind of put things into a parts dictionary which shouldn't be there. In fact, title part should be on a content item, and I should be saying give me the title part, and it should be, instead of parts, it should be title part. However, dealing with the GraphQL schema is kind of odd. So getting that to work has been a little bit of a headache. But you know, it's kind of coming along, and it's quite nice. The other one I wanted to show was the JSON API, but it looks like we've got a bit of an error with that. I don't really know what. It seems very strange that I've got stuff coming in through image sharp middleware, but yeah. So that's the initial GraphQL stuff, and it uses GraphQL.net, which is this library, which is quite an active development, which is quite nice. Yeah, and you can do a lot of things if you know, if we wanted to.
So I saw a client. You can't use a client because you don't have the metadata already.
Yeah, I haven't got a richly defined schema yet. That's one of the issues, is trying to generate a schema. The problem with Orchard is that the schema is not static, and most of the GraphQL libraries, in fact, all the GraphQL libraries, make the assumption that the schema is static. So the way Orchard will work with GraphQL is that the schema needs to be built per request, or it can be cached and it can be built per when you change a content item for a content type, then we can invalidate that cache and it can be rebuilt on the next request. But yeah, it's making the assumption that the schema is static, which again in turn makes the code quite static. But Orchard's code's not static. Orchard code's kind of, it is static, but what we do is very dynamic. You know, you can build content types up from the UI, and that needs to be represented in code somehow. So it's not quite as straightforward as one would hope, but it's coming along.
Okay, maybe you should have content item, only the properties of a content item, and / blog, a blog, which will have only the content item properties and the part of a blog.
Say that again?
If you have two different queries, content items, blogs, well, like one for each content type and one schema for each content type.
Well, yeah, I think that's the route I'm going, is to generate a schema, and then instead of content items.
Well, you can have this one that will have all the common properties of a content item, but you can also have blogs, which will just have the ones for a blog.
Yeah, maybe.
Because otherwise you have to expose all the part names from all the types in the content items, which will be hard.
Well, you need, yeah, that's what's. So I think it's okay. I think if we do it when we on the initial request, it builds the schema and puts that into cache, then you've got the schema built.
It's not about caching or whatever. It's about what information you expose here.
Well, we can expose all of it.
What I mean is that if you have 100 content types, all of them have different parts.
Yeah.
Content items schema can't expose all the parts of all the types. That's unusable.
Yeah, no, what you say, Sebastian, is you say, I want a title part. So if you go back to this query will change slightly and it will say, I actually want that.
I'm talking about this. Yeah, but sure, fine. But that has to be in the schema.
This?
Yes, the fact that there is a title part. So what I'm saying,
what I want.
But what I'm saying is that you can't. It's not a technical issue. It's just a user's perspective issue. If you expose all the type of the parts and all the named parts in the schema, it will be unusable because you won't be able to guess what parts are available for which things. And it makes sense.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that yes, you can have a content items schema that will just expose what is common to all the content items, which is just the inner property of a content item. But you can also have a type called blog. So you do query of blog, and inside you will say ID content type and title part, body part, and that you can define the schema for blog only. So blog will be a type too.
Yeah, maybe something like.
So you can have content items with a filter on a content type. That's fine. So you can get the list of content item IDs, for instance, and then you can do a query of blogs. You see?
Yeah, like this maybe. Blogs with just the title part.
Yes,
something.
And by the way, by just saying content type blog as a filter, you might also be able to drive the client to say, oh, now I just have blogs, so I will just show the schema for blogs.
Oh, it won't be blogs either. You can't make it. We can't
whatever.
Really make it. Yeah.
You can make it whatever you want. You type it. You give the string. The string is what you want. But yes, you can't pluralize, so it will be blog, and that's fine.
Yeah. It kind of sucks. Pluralize, but
yes and no, because look at the demos that they give for GraphQL. They give like
Star Wars.
Yes, and you see the properties they are given by string, so that's doable. If we need to have a metadata on the type, an optional metadata on the type that is like plural version of the thing or display name plural or whatever, we can always do that, but I don't care right now. I don't think it's an issue.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so I'm still playing around with this.
That's good. That is good.
It's kind of nice. GraphQL is quite nice. I'm still not. I don't know. Like it's one endpoint and it's not RESTful. JSON API.
Well, that's the goal. That make it simpler. There is one endpoint.
Yeah. Well,
and the metadata is the most important thing, because then you can play and see IntelliSense. Like you can build queries and see how they look like. You don't have to guess when you have the metadata, and that's cool.
Yeah. But what I like about REST is that it's discoverable, and that's one thing that I don't like about JSON API is that the JSON API specification isn't very discoverable. So implementing that as a REST API still kind of bugs me.
We have the two. We have JSON API and we have GraphQL. Everyone's happy.
We do have both.
You have all the best of all the worlds. That's good. I like it.
Yeah. Well, if I can get it working again, it looks like something broke it when I upgraded to .NET Core 2.
Okay.
I don't know what this is.
We'll fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll give it in the hands of the users, and they will tell us what's good and what's not good, because people ask for it.
Yeah, well, the JSON API stuff just works, and it's a bit of a round robin thing. So you query the first one, and then you can go to the nested ones, and the nested ones can go back to the single ones, and so on and so forth. And that's quite nice. We do need to put post methods on both of the endpoints, but yeah, it's quite nice. It's all right.
That's good. Thank you. Good job. Okay, I think that's it. So I will fix the Docker images, recipe is Docker. I think that's it for the demos. We fix many things, documentation about theming too. Topics. Still working on the beta release. We have all the version numbers available. So as a reminder, there is a Myget feed and the Myget feed that contains all the packages which are pushed automatically, and they are all named OrchardCore.Something now. And the version is 1.0.0 beta 1 and the build number. Questions? No questions. That's good. Okay, so I see you on Thursday and the others on next Tuesday. Thanks everyone.